settlement date's not until like, say, 3 4 months later, because you have to then do 2 UNO inspections?
Yeah, so the timing is really critical, you know, for it. I think you're kind of jumping ahead where I'm gonna go with this, because I'll talk about that timing and everything. So if you can just share with Jeff.
Helen, do all of them give you checklists?
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to share, because I only have 5 townships. Oh, you're fine. Yeah,
No,
I
you're
know.
fine. This is,
I'm gonna
because
get
I was
you
gonna
guys.
move anyway, so we can share this,
Oh,
because she's
okay,
not.
good.
Okay, yeah, come share, that'd be great, thank you.
Do all the townships issue checklists out?
No, no, not all the townships do. Here you go. Langhorne, I don't believe, and granted, I don't do a lot of, yeah. I don't think, Howard, does Langhorne do a use and occupancy? Langhorne Borough does.
Yes, it does.
Oh, does it?
It does.
There we go. So that's why, so where you're doing business with, Bensalem does, I just brought the general ones that, you know, but like I said, the reference would be Suburban Realtor Alliance. So I'm gonna get back to your question, Rose, okay? So what's gonna trigger, so in a perfect world, you get a closed transaction. Part of your loop has conveyancing or green sheet number 2, okay? If
Another
you,
handout? I'm sorry.
what's that?
Another handout?
I don't have any more,
Okay.
sorry.
Can I make a copy of one of yours?
Yeah. So on this, one of the options is, do you want the title company to order the use and occupancy? Now, if you check yes, they're gonna come up with a check, they're gonna give you an application to fill out that's in part of your package, depending on the township that we're in, and they're gonna send the check out for you. At that point, the township will contact you and say, I need access to schedule this. If they don't call you in a timely manner, you're gonna wanna call that. But our title company will cut that check for the use and occupancy. Now, if I need that within, let's go back to my story of, I wanna do the UNO during the time frame of my 10-day home inspection, okay? I would tell the buyer, we're gonna have to get a check from that buyer and do the application myself
So
and
you
take that down to the township.
So now the seller's no longer responsible. When you do that, you become responsible for it if you want it done during the inspection period?
If I'm buying an as-is property,
Oh, as it is, right.
if I'm buying an as-is
Right, yeah.
property,
I was a little confused.
okay?
Okay. Right.
We're talking about an as-is property.
Okay.
Okay, my buyer is responsible, so I have a buyer's agent hat on right now. My buyer's responsible, we have 10 days, I'm buying a bank-owned property. I'm doing the inspections, but I also want to know the crossover on what the township is going to require so that this young couple who's leaving their apartment on January 30th can move into here, or what's going to be required. How long are they going to be displaced before they can occupy this property? There might be nothing on it. There might be several things on it. At that point, you have to weigh with your buyer whether it's cost effective for those repairs to be done prior to them owning the house. So you need to protect them. If I have a buyer who it's just smoke detectors in every bedroom, not a big deal. I call up the co-op, I say, hey, in order for us to get the clear occupancy, which I know we're responsible for, we have to go over there and put smoke detectors. Can we do that? Yes, you can, no problem, we're gonna go do that. We have a clear UNO. But if I have a situation where the requirements for the township is to get a new chimney liner, that's $900. To get some repairs to the heater, that's gonna be more money, okay? You need to sit down with your buyer, whether you want to have your buyer put money out of their pocket prior to owning that, okay? So you need to sit down and figure that out. Also, on a bank-owned property, you may not get permission to do those repairs prior to ownership. So that young couple who thinks they're moving from apartment into their house, you need to educate them that they need to have an alternative spot until we get a clear UNO, okay? Because it can get, because one of the things, as deals potentially fall apart, you know, hopefully they fall apart earlier in the transaction, but some fall apart right before settlement. If they do, you don't want that buyer to have skin in the game and they don't own the property and those repairs are done. So you want to protect them, okay? But in a perfect world, the process is where our title company, if we instruct them to do it, which means paperwork needs to be all turned in and submitted, they will cut the check to the municipality to do the UNO. They will complete the application needed for that, okay?
Do most agents do it through title, the application?
Yes, I would say.
That's easier, right, than just calling the township, like having the buyer call the township?
Yeah, so the only way I'm calling the township is if I know that it's a critical, Rose, I want to do it where I execute this, it's out of my hands, I'm moving on to the next deal, okay? Let that process happen, where the check gets cut, title gives you the check or mails the check. Township, Falls Township is gonna want a wet signature on, that's the only township in this area that I'm aware of that will want a wet signature and everything original. You can't fax it, you can't do anything like that. They're gonna say, sorry, we can't take that.
So the application is signed by the buyer.
Application is signed by the buyer and by the seller.
But if a title company, if it's not Falls, the title company would put a signature on and just order it without actually the buyer.
Everybody else but Falls Township. So what's gonna happen is they're gonna put, the title company will put the application in your mailbox and ask for signatures, okay? So if you are a listing agent in that township, Falls Township, you want that part of your listing package. So you're getting that signed right at the coffee table, okay? Wet signatures right at the coffee table. And if you're a buyer's agent, I get that directly from the co-op side, or I may, if they're not familiar, I'll just tell them, look, I'm getting my buyer to sign this application. I will leave it at the home inspection for you, at the table, and it will be wet signatures, and I know that they can do their thing, okay? So, Falls Township, let's start with them. Definitely a wet signature, okay? They're gonna require a heater certification and a chimney certification, okay? Those are all good for 30 days. So like Jeff's question from earlier, I go under contract and my settlement isn't for 60 days. You don't want to tell your seller to get the certification right away because they're only good for a certain time frame, okay? So you want, I always trigger it or put it on their schedule.
What's only good for 30 days?
The certifications.
And got the UNO, that's good for 30 days, right?
Yeah, the UNO is, I think it's 120.
Yeah, I would order it right away, it's a 60-day settlement.
Yeah, so I would order the UNO right away, but the certifications, I would not.
Well, how do you know if there's something wrong with the certification, like if you're gonna run into expenses on the buyer and end of that?
So if I have meat and oil come out, and I'm settling the end of February, and they come out today, the township will make me re-inspect it.
Yeah, but wait, what happens if you bring the township, the certifications for heater and chimney at the end of this month when the unit comes out, even though you're not settling to the end of next month? They'll give you the UNO at that time, won't they? It's good for 120 days?
You know what, I'm not sure about that, Howard. I mean, they may, so Howard's saying if I get the UNO done like a month before settlement, Yeah, more than a month. Will they be okay with that?
They won't,
And I don't think they will.
they won't, because they'll look at the date, you have to specify when's your settlement, and if you bring that in earlier, Mary Jo's gonna say, no.
What if there's expenses to be had on these certifications, like when
That's
they
why
go-
I do it, my system is I tell the sellers to do it within 30 days.
But if it's not good, if the certification's not good for 60, but on my settlement,
Well, no,
If you have repairs, then you just gotta do it in 30 days, that's all.
I do it in 30 days. I do it 30
You
days.
do the repairs
So-
within that 30 days.
So if
you're
I
just
have
not getting
meeting
a
comes out,
certification.
if I have meeting come out, I'm having them come out 30 days prior to settlement. Meaning says, Mr. Seller, you need this valve, a cleaning, and the seller approves that, those repairs, and they get those done. And then their issue, Meenan Oil, will issue a letter. It's got to be the original letter from Meenan, and they have to have a license within Pennsylvania in order for Falls Township to accept that. And they will go ahead and do that, but it's definitely 30 days.
Okay, my concern was when you said you represented the buyer, and your buyer, like say, an asset property. Like if you have your buyer, what if that certification calls for a hefty expense, and you don't know it? Because you're not ordering the certification.
So I do that all door. So if I am, so we're back to a buyer's, I'm a buyer's agent at this point. I'm going after a bank-owned property, and I'm in this situation right now. I have the UNO guy come out, okay, and he gives me a punch list of what's required. I have a heater cert and a chimney cert be done within 30 days of settlement and within the time frame of the home inspection. Because if I want to get out because of,
Well, that's what my concern.
then I do it all at the same time. I do it.
But if it's not good for the 60 days, then like how do
No,
you
no,
have it
no,
done?
no, I think, no, so it's failed. It's failed. Settlement happens, right? I get my buyer to get those repairs done on that unit, and then they get the certification, and then it's good with the township.
It's after some.
That's after settlement.
Okay, but so it's also after you get an estimate of what it may cost them to do? Because you want your buyer to be able to walk away, if it's a $10,000 job,
Correct.
and he doesn't have it. So you're getting your certification, you're just not finalizing.
I'm getting my inspection, I'm getting my certification inspection.
Inspection, oh,
Yeah.
that's, okay.
Yeah,
So you
but
are
two,
ordering.
let's be realistic, guys. Most bank-owned properties or properties that are in distress are gonna have problems.
Right.
We're typically getting it at a nice price, okay? Possibly a contractor, possibly a 203K. So as long as we educate the buyer on what they're getting into, good or bad, and they make that decision, you know, then we can. I mean, I settled Friday with something, it was 3 feet underwater in the summertime, the house, heater, everything.
Is that the one I sat in on? Yeah, because I saw you asking questions on Facebook regarding it.
Yeah, so we knew systems weren't working. So in that instance, I did not have Meenan Oil come out and do a certification. I didn't have the chimney guy come out. My guy was comfortable with the condition of the property, and we got a temporary use and occupancy for Falls Township. So a temporary is whenever you tell the township or the municipality that you have a buyer moving into the township, but the property condition doesn't deem occupancy. So on that temporary, they're gonna give you about 60 days to do the repairs in order to get the occupancy completed, okay? A lot of things that come up with temporary.
Is this like for an investor, like they would buy a
Yeah.
property in distress, that's what it sounds like, right? And then they're not gonna move in right away, they're going to flip it.
Do some renovation.
Yes, so they would be the ones getting a temporary use and occupancy, so that they can have, can you also extend the temporary occupancy, saying now you needed 120 days for the work to be done?
So Rose, with my experience, I have been able to get extensions on the temporary because I communicated that to the township. If the township doesn't hear from you and they assume that you've moved in or that you're not occupying, and they find out that you moved in, like, you could get fined. The buyer could get
So
fined.
you have to.
Okay, so,
Temporary?
on the temporary, if they move in,
That's
in.
That's illegal. That's clear.
Really?
Yeah.
So if,
Jamie Ridge came in here, Jamie Ridge is the head of SRA, and they passed legislation last year, it was signed to January 1st of last year. It said the only way that they can not allow you to occupy is if the property is condemned. So they have to allow you to occupy. Now, Falls gives you a hard time about it. Okay, they'll tell you you can't, but if I were a buyer, I'd move in and let them take me to court, because they're gonna lose.
yeah,
In fact, Jamie Ridge called Falls Township and spoke to their solicitor
okay.
and explained that you can't stop people from moving in unless you condemn the property.
But they probably still can find them though.
No, they can't.
No,
That-
they can't?
That was, when they said that if you don't have a UNO, that's no reason for you not to settle.
You have to have a UNO. You have to have a temporary UNO.
Temporary UNO.
But they cannot not issue a temporary UNO, and they can't not allow you to occupy it.
If you're still
It's
living
not
there.
gonna stop the sale, right?
It's not gonna stop a sale.
It's not gonna stop the sale.
You can get a temporary. You can get a temporary.
In Pennsylvania, they can't stop a sale.
They can stop the sale.
What does it entail to get a temporary UNO? Because I actually have an investor who just purchased in Falls Township, so I'm so happy. I'm here.
So you get a $100 check from title, you
Okay.
get wet signatures on the application, you take it down to the township will schedule somebody to go out and they take pictures of the temporary, of the property, okay? They come back, no issue, they'll issue you a temporary,
Okay,
okay? Once the people occupy the property, so if it's a flipper, for instance,
correct.
and I have that case. So they renovate the property, and then they can get the completed temporary at the end. You won't have to do a second,
That's awesome for
You won't have to do it.
resale.
you won't have to do a second
Okay,
one. You won't have to do a second one, yes.
Also with the wet signatures, if it's bank owned, my experience is that the seller does not sign, they don't need a wet signature from the seller.
So
If it's
Falls,
bank-owned.
Falls Township will, as long as it's bank-owned, and you can prove to them that it's bank-owned. If it is an estate, you're gonna have to give a copy of the short certification.
I know, is that ridiculous in a way?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Falls
Yeah.
Township's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, so, and I get like what Howard's saying, like, you know what I mean? But for me, I am, what do you want? Okay, that's how I'm doing it. I'm following their rules, and I get that there's regulation that they can't push me around or do that to my buyer, but, you know, they're playing in my sandbox. They're the rulers for me, you know? So I'm walking in there, what can I do? Oh, you need it that way, Mary? No problem, I'll get it.
And they're
Because
nice.
I do not want to cause waves, because there's been times whenever I've walked in there and it's the day before settlement and something came up and they're making it happen for me, okay? So those relationships there, just like we've always talked about co-op relationships, you know, remember, we're in their sandbox, you know?
Do you mean short certificate? You need a short
Short-
certificate from the pathonetary?
Yeah, what did I say?
No, I just wanted to
Yeah,
make
short-
sure, because
yeah.
you're gonna, okay,
Yeah, you need a short certificate in Falls Township, okay?
for an
So-
estate.
Or a state, yes, yes. So, Middletown's easy, okay? You need a level 2 chimney certification if it's a Levittown house. Okay? The fire marshal comes out and they'll fax you a copy of the UNO and you're done. Very, very easy in Middletown.
What's level 2 mean? Just that they're gonna.
Yeah, they're just that they're gonna make sure that it's not gonna cause fire, I guess, you know?
So you don't need a heater, you just need a level 2 chimney
Yeah, in Middletown,
in the middle.
in Middletown. So I'm filling this application out. Whenever I do my loop, the title company gets it because I hit submit. They're gonna generate an application for you. They're gonna generate a check, mail that, and you're good, okay?
Do they do the application or do they send it to yourselves, I mean, to your buyers?
They're not
They
gonna,
actually fill out the application for you?
they're gonna send it to the municipality
They are, without.
unless we need wet signatures, and then they're gonna give that to
all
you.
that information.
Because title will never give it to your buyer or to your seller. That's gonna be your responsibility.
But you don't have to physically go and talk to me, they'll just do it for you.
They'll
Send
just
to
do
the
it
town.
for you, yeah.
Unless you need.
Not unless you know, if you have a deal in any of those, you wanna fill this out, just right from the get-go,
Right.
okay? Bristol Township, oh, yeah, Bristol Township. So Bristol Township, you need a chimney certification and an electrical certification. Electrical certification needs to be somebody from their list. I use George Reinhardt, doesn't matter, but as long as it's from the Bristol Township list, okay? The title company will only send in the application to Bristol Township, okay? Bristol Township doesn't actually physically walk out to the property. They used to about 3 years ago. They do not now.
You said they need electrical and what?
Squash that.
Yeah,
When are they moving to Falls?
I don't know. I don't know. So, also for Bristol, you're gonna have to have your buyer sign a resale certification, and I believe the seller signs it too, saying that they are aware of the curbs where right now they're not making people repair any curbs or sidewalks, okay? So there's a moratorium on that. But in the future, when they go to sell in 5 years, they might change that rule. So this resale certification is making your buyer aware that in the future, they might have to change all those curbs and aprons that are crumbling in all of Bristol Township, okay? Another thing on there, it says that there's working smoke detectors and the heater is functioning. So and it does not have to be a wet signature, electronic signatures will be taken there, okay? And then the temporary for both Falls and Bristol, and I don't want to confuse you, but the temporary, whenever you get a temp, there's a hold harmless letter that there's a template in the package that you need to fill out and have it notarized here at the office in order for them to issue you a temporary occupancy in Bristol Township and also in Falls Township, okay? So our title company is generous enough where if you bring your client in here, they will have them notarized and then you can go on your way with getting a temporary there. Trouble that I've run into. Bristol Township's great. The girls down there are great. Middletown, I already talked about Middletown. Bristol Borough. Bristol Borough is going to require a heater, chimney cert. Same thing, guys, with Morrisville. And in both of those boroughs, Morrisville and Bristol, they will actually physically walk out the property and give them a punch list on code problems. So whether it be smoke detectors, hand railing, anti-tip devices. Everybody know what an anti-tip device is? Anti-tip device is, so it's a little bracket that you put on the back of your stove so that if you have a large pot on the top and you are pulling out a turkey, the pot doesn't go this way. So it gets you on every Falls Township house.
Warmminster has it too. Warmminster stuff, I didn't do it for my dad, just they,
Really?
I didn't know it was called that, but.
Yeah, so it's an anti-tip tip device. So, I don't know. So, I guess my point is, we always want to refer back to Suburban Realtor Alliance or the individual municipality web pages because these boroughs are changing their rules all the time, okay? It's important as new agents, I remember whenever I was new, I would go in. I want to make myself familiar to them. Here's the application, you know, here's that. We mail it now because I don't really want to be doing that. But whenever I have a favor, I can go down there, be like, oh, how was the baby? Oh, yeah, by the way, I have this problem, blah, blah, blah. So it's important to develop those type of relationships.
And with the inspectors.
And with the inspectors. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Questions? Who's having problems with UNO? You know,
Does anybody know anything about fence sale? Like,
same
like I have my property, like, should I have like anything, I think we looked into it when I listed it, and it was only good for 30 days, so I didn't have any electrical inspections or anything like that, or they need chimney and electrical from an underwriter that they list.
that they list on their thing. Yeah, so bed
They don't
sale's
do
the same thing.
inspections.
They don't physically come out anymore.
So you would, so I shouldn't be doing anything ahead of time before I
If you're-
have a contract to make sure that they have, like, they know that there's gonna be one. I've given them the UNO stuff from Suburban, so they're aware that they're gonna need one.
So
So is
we
there
did-
anything I need to do before the house sells?
So have I had sellers who are Mr. Particular, says, look, I want the township to come out now, and we're gonna get the checklist so I can start working on that. But I do tell them that those certifications are only good for the 30 days in Falls Township. So we don't do those, but I've gotten the punch list for them. So it really just depends on what the seller wants to do. If they, hey, wanna wait until it's, under contract, that's fine, because right now they're incurring expenses. And why aren't you under contract by now?
I don't know, I should be. I
It's
should be.
working?
I just got a reduction, I should be.
Are you kidding me?
Come on,
We gotta
guys,
check
sell it.
that,
Come on,
you
guys,
know?
sell it.
We gotta
The
check
only thing I
that.
do before settlement is order the sewers.
Okay,
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna
that
say
could,
that.
they could make you move a shed or take it down a swimming pool or whatever.
How long is that
That's
take
only
about
Levittown,
now?
right?
Couple weeks, but as soon as I list a property, I send a fax to them.
Okay, let me ask the question. I have a buyer, gonna buy in Golden Ridge, Justin Gall is the, should I be calling him and saying, hey, do we have this yet? Have you ordered
Yeah.
it yet? Because they're gonna wanna make settlement in like 30, 45
Yeah,
days.
especially if there's a shed in the back or addition or a pool.
Okay.
Or, I just had one in Indian Creek where, they made her cut down a couple of
Was
trees.
that Indian Red?
Yeah.
Was that, okay, this backs up to, is it Emily Road there, behind Golden Ridge, right there? So the sewer easement could be closer to the actual highway, because there's a swing set back there, there's trees back there,
so here's the thing, Deb.
I don't know.
I learned that was $30,000, not out of my pocket, thank the Lord. But it was, you never assume where those sewer mains are, okay? I had a property where it came right in between two houses. It wasn't where it typically was in the back. It was a street that connected to the next street. I didn't know that, you know? Whenever I went out for the listing appointment, the backyard was clear. I'm like, oh, it looks like the easement, I'm gonna order it, but I'll let you know, you know? And it was, the building, the garage was actually built over top of the sewer easement.
See, this has a big
We had to move
expansion.
the road.
This has a huge,
I would not settle on a property for my buyer unless I had that easement. And my system, whether I'm the buyer's agent or the seller's agent, is I order what Howard orders.
Immediately if
I
I get a list.
order it.
Does
Soon as
everybody
the
understand
contract's
that
signed,
this is
I
separate
fax
from the use and occupancy? Because
Yeah.
I got confused.
Yeah,
about
you're paying
it.
for that.
Yeah.
No, there's
So
no,
it-
Lower Bucks
there's no
Joint
fee for
Municipal
that.
Is there a
Authority.
fee for it, so you can.
Yeah.
Does everybody
So
understand
any,
it's
any
different?
other.
And it's only 11.
So guys, there's two things, so we're talking about the occupancy, but 3 years ago, Lower Bucks Joint started policing their sewer easement in Levittown area. Now, very small parts of Fairless Hills are Lower Bucks Joint too, okay? Across the street from the YMCA is, okay? So, it's two separate orders. Bucks County Abstract will not order your sewer easement inspection. You need to do that. I have a template letter, you just write in the address and you fax it. So you're more than happy to stop by my office and get that, but I would do it for every single one, okay?
There's no cost to that?
There's no cost to that. Now, the time frame on when they're coming out, we have no control over that. Jennifer is a sweetheart down there. They have a pile of them. If there's a main that breaks in that municipality or in that area, we are on the bottom of the barrel on them doing their inspections. So probably about 30 days they want. And
You
that's
usually get it in a couple of weeks, but they
Yeah.
tell you it could be up to 30 days.
up to 30
So
days.
any seller, if they're thinking of selling their home, whether they could call and get an easement inspection on their
You have to
property for no
fax.
cost.
You have to fax them.
Right, but if you just called the township and said, I want to make it
Not
out.
the township, it's gonna be Lower Bucks
Oh,
Joint.
Lower
And
Bucks Joint.
they don't want the phone calls, they want a fax. They want a piece of paper saying that you requested with a, make sure you get your confirmation and everything like that.
How do you know if they belong to Lower Bucks Joint?
You can, one, ask them, are they with Aqua, who supplies your water and sewer?
Oh, it's whoever supplies the water.
Whoever
So
supplies
you're
the
saying
water.
that's extending out of low down, is what you're saying?
So I came across one on Queen Anne Drive where it was a beautiful in-ground pool, saltwater, big selling point. We had to move it, we had to get rid of it. We were under contract, it was 18 inches, the pool was there for 30 years.
Oh,
There's no grandfather law in
There's
that.
no grandfather law, there's nothing. So my house on Ring Lane, that we had to move the garage 18 inches. The seller had the permits from Bristol Township. The seller had everything. Everything, he did everything right. Except for way back 30 years ago when he did that addition. Go to Lower Bucks Joint and make sure it wasn't built over the sewer easement. And the only way they're policing this is the sewer mains are breaking all over town. So when a sewer main breaks and they can't get there to fix it and houses floods, they're the ones that get sued, meaning Lower Bucks Joint. So that happened in Greenbrook about 3 years ago. 8 houses got flooded and they don't care. If a shed's been there, a pool's been there, your grandfather built it, they don't care. It's gotta go, if it's on the easement. Trees arborvitaes that made the privacy, I remember I wrote up, beautiful private backyard, all of them had to come down.
Oh, I sell it on Indeed, but I had to cut down some bushes and a tree or two.
It's brutal.
Now, you call them to come out, they come out and they tell you what has to be done. It's up to usually unless it's a bank owned, it's up to the seller to remediate any of that. You get that done, how long, then you have to wait for them to come back out and re-inspect it, correct? Are you talking about a 30-day time frame between them?
It could be.
Okay.
That's why as soon as you list it, you order it.
Yeah, as soon as you list it,
I'm more concerned
Oh,
about.
yeah, you wanna make sure that you're not misrepresenting to a buyer that they're getting this beautiful shed.
Right, that's what I
Okay,
want.
or this
Yeah.
wonderful swimming pool.
yeah.
Because if,
And
buyers.
that's not in my hands, that's in the seller's hands, so it's up to me to call the seller and say, hey, listen.
Deb, I wouldn't even call the seller.
Yeah,
I
just
mean,
fax.
and if you feel like you're stepping on toes, so be it. I don't think most agents outside of this area are gonna know what to do, okay? So, in order to cover you and your buyer, I would do the letter, fax it to them, and then you're gonna get the response.
Well,
That,
check with the listing agent first. Justin may have ordered it already.
yeah,
And if he ordered it, he might have it.
yeah,
But
And
if
if
he
you
says,
have-
if he says he didn't, just say, I'll do it?
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
say,
fine.
well, do it.
Most agents
know.
don't care.
Right, that's what I mean, if he hasn't done it, then there's no reason.
I'm sure,
Yeah, I
most
spoke to-
agents that do a lot of business in the Levittown area know to do it.
Yeah.
So, but if you have the buyer, call them, ask them, did you do it, do you have a clear cert? And then you can proceed whatever way you need to.
Guys, another thing, go ahead.
Do you have the fax number?
I have it on that sheet.
Title also
Okay.
has.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And it's just like a sample letter that I have, so I could just put right in the address.
okay,
And that has all my pertinent information, so they just fax it right back to me,
okay.
once it's done. So, another thing, in order to get an occupancy, in most boroughs or townships are not gonna issue you an occupancy if a seller has an outstanding permit. And some of them may not even know if they do or don't, okay? They build a shed and like I just got hit on one too this month, where shed's there and the township's noting check for permit on shed. So we have to go back, look in the archives, did, the grandfather get the permit 20 years ago? No permit, so we have to get the permit. And it could be where it was just plopped wherever. It could, not be on the easement, but it could not be where the setbacks for the township wants it. It might not be where the electric line wants it.
What's the
So what
neighborhood where Christine lives?
She's in, Worcesterwood.
I had a listing in Worcester where they built a beautiful addition, two-story family room. Never got a permit. They had to cut holes in the walls to inspect the electrical. Yeah.
What happens, I mean, I've heard that if you don't have a permit, they can more or less detect when or whatever you built that and charge you taxes from that time on?
Generally, they don't go back and do that.
Yeah, I don't think the
The township doesn't
assessor,
assess them, it's the county.
yeah, I don't,
So all they care about is, was it built up to code?
Right.
and their little permit fee or whatever it would be, like I gotta pay the little permit fee or whatever. But I think the main thing is they're looking for it to be up to code, you know, that it was. So,
I mean, people
Yeah,
don't want
I
it
think
because,
it's
you know, what
somebody
happens.
else.
The taxes go up, you know, people in Levittown did it all the time.
I have
People
three
do it everywhere. My
additions.
son just almost got fined for doing a siding.
What's that?
I have 3 additions on my house and I only get permits for the exterior stuff. But, you know, and that was years ago whenever I put some of that stuff on, before I had relationships with permits or had knowledge.
Right.
So,
And nobody ever think, I'm putting a shed up, I need a permit,
yeah,
you know?
I didn't either, they keep on changing
You
already.
replace your hot water
It
heater.
says a sign. You need to
you
put
get a
it
permit for
You replace
everything.
your garbage disposal, you need a permit.
that sign's
No
gonna be.
way. Yeah,
Inside these Levittown homes?
Any house,
Any
in
house.
any township.
any township.
You
So
change
you're
it.
asking for that when you sell? Or-
No one's ever,
Garbage disposal.
no one
You need
ever
a
does.
permit in Richboro to
But-
get your
But
front door.
technically you do.
Guys, the only thing that I've been caught on is sheds, and if there's some, like sketchy work,
Or additions.
yeah, like, and if it's sketchy work on the additions, like, you know,
Well, this is what's
So-
concerning me now about this house in Gable Hill, it's a huge addition. Now, I don't think it's that old, wouldn't a contractor that,
Have
no.
gotten, have gotten.
Does your seller's disclosure say whether they obtained permits for the addition?
I don't have a disclosure yet.
so here's the
I
thing,
just
in
looked at it
Bristol
last night.
Township, that you're not gonna have those same hurdles, because no one physically comes out from the township to inspect. So you're not gonna have an issue with them calling for permits. But when you do your home inspection, you wanna make sure that the buyer is not inheriting something that is not completely up to code. Okay, so that's gonna be more of the issue, so. But guys, if you put systems in place to find these problems, like Howard said, fax the letter as soon as you get the listing. You know, my system is I do, whether it's buyer or seller, I send it to Lower Bucks Joint. I'm not getting caught on one more shed or one more whatever. I'm gonna know what we're doing. And I'm not settling unless I have that clearance from Lower Bucks Joint.
Now, have you had where, you know, a seller is like, I can't afford to do $15,000 or $20,000 to move a pool or whatever,
Yeah.
so now I can't sell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not, so here's the thing, the problem is, we do have an agent in our office currently in a potential lawsuit, because there was trust with the co-op, and there was no visual that looked like everything was good. They escrowed a little bit of money, but the cost is $30,000 to
For what was
or
what was
it's
repaired?
part of the garage, it's the garage, it's on the easement, it's on the easement. So,
And they didn't
you
have
don't wanna
Lowe's
get-
Go out?
you'd rather, I mean, you wanna do what you can to save deals and everything, but when, you know, it's not your fault that a pool got put there 30 years ago. You gotta
Just
figure out what you're doing to resolve the problem with your seller.
But it's just, it's falling on the homeownership, and, you know, they allowed this 20 years ago, and now they're going back on it
Whether
and
it's
saying,
right or
well,
wrong,
no,
it's-
yeah, it's.
We
it's
had,
really-
we had Lower Bucks go out, give us a clear cert. We were within 30 days, I think it was longer than that, but it was still good. We could have closed, they sent a certified letter to our client stating, oh, we're sorry, we made a mistake. This and this has to be removed. After we had a clear set, we still could have settled, but that would have been the wrong thing to do.
Yeah,
Like, now they're telling us, we didn't take notes. We followed up, we're like, how do we get a clear
Yeah.
cert? And then they It was like a week before settlement, all of a sudden we had to move a shed and take down trees and bushes
Yeah,
after we got cleared.
Yeah.
So be very, very careful.
yeah. And the issue is not, like, we're just the messengers.
Yeah.
Always just the messengers. And it's really, you know, everything is pretty much fixable. There's gonna be a cost to it, and who's responsible. You know, I never say to a seller, hey, like, it is what it is. You know, if you wanna go get an attorney and fight Lower Bucks Joint, let's do it. I'll try and get you a great attorney. But, you know, in my experience, they always win, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's, but having systems in place, whether you're dealing with Lower Bucks Joint or a municipality where you do business in, okay, and each of us have our specific little nooks. You want to become very streamlined in how that happens. Whether your buyer is buying an as-is property, whether your seller is selling it as is. You know, if your seller's selling it as is, then it's all on the buyer to do that UNO. And make sure it's clear in writing, buyer's responsible for Ben Salem use and occupancy, you know, and all certifications. Make sure it's clear in the agreement of sale, if that's the case, okay? And I can't stress to you more the relationship with walking into the township. You don't want to be that bitch walking in, because they'll bitch right up, okay? They'll kick you out of the township, so. And whether that's right or wrong, so you want to play nice in the sandbox, okay? And do whatever they want, or explain to me what, because you're explaining it to the seller or to the buyer, okay? So, questions?
Did you have a buyer or seller on that pool?
I had the seller. So we,
And so you took out the pool?
we,
You filled it in?
so, we canceled the contract, because we had to disclose that we had to remove the pool, which was a big selling point to the buyer. I took it off the market, and we, got some estimates, fought a little bit, had Lower Bucks Joint come out a couple times, showed them the permits of when the pool was installed, when, the 3 liners were reinstalled, all with permits, and, they didn't care.
That didn't matter, because in the last 3 years, they changed their rules.
They didn't change the rules in the
Well, I
last
mean-
3 years, they started policing the rules in
Policing
the
them.
last 3 years, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it didn't matter whether you had permits 20 years ago or not, you were still now not in compliance.
Correct, correct. So we removed the pool, 10 grand later, put the house back on the market, and same buyer went under contract with it
The same
For-
thing did come at first, but,
for a little bit less, so, yeah.
but at first they said they don't want the property to go, well, obviously.
Well, two, they didn't,
know what was gonna
they didn't
take
wanna
to get
take
that pool
on the
out.
responsibility of the pool, so we told them we were gonna fight it, we had to remove it, and that's what we did. So, question?
And also, if you're taking on a listing ad for of a rental, or if you have a tenant, some of them that you do need a UNO for a rental.
And that'll tell you.
I got a phone call from Bristol Township. I had a listing in Golden Ridge, a rental listing. And about a week before the tenant was supposed to take occupancy, I get a phone call, said, make sure you apply for your listing on whatever road it was. And I'm like, now they're like looking at Craigslist ads and hunting you down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, they
Because I know a
definitely
lot of my landlords never get UNOs.
Yeah,
Middletown, a UNO for a rental is more, there's more involvement for sale.
yeah.
My landlords know. I have a couple landlords in Lower South, I know. I'm also friends with the township, so.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do.
So just
Phil,
for
you had-
If you go to the municipality for the water and you get that fax letter back saying you're okay, is there a timestamp on that? Is that gonna expire? Because if you do,
It only expires if you build something on the easement.
so
There's no
if you get
expiration.
it, when you get the listing, but like, let's say, all right, so you get the listing, but they wanna clean the house first and it's not gonna go to market for 2 or 3 months, when should you get that letter?
I would get it right away. I
Right.
would get that letter right away, because
Immediately.
if there's issues, I wanna know about it. So as long as the seller takes care of those issues, and we have a clear certification from Lower Bucks Joint, and the seller doesn't alter the property in any manner, then you should be good. Like, there's no change to the property, okay?
Is it a real certification, or is it, we just got a fax?
It's just a fax.
Just one pager, okay.
It's literally a fax cover sheet that
Yes.
says this
That's what I
property is okay.
Okay, that's what we
So,
got, okay.
that's all you need.
Okay,
Yep,
Thank
that's all
you.
you need. So, questions? Yes?
I have a seller who is under contract as of last week. And.
Falls Township?
Yes. He has a propane, he converted his fireplace to propane, so would I need the chimney cert, and then I was reading this for propane, it says you need a plumber to come out and check the line for that, so that's two different inspections then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing you don't need is, in Falls Township, is if you have a heat pump, you don't need to get a heater cert.
Okay, his is all electric.
You don't need a heater, sir, even if it's a heat pump? You don't need a chimney, sir.
You don't need a chimney, so
Still need a heater,
you
sir.
still need the.
We do a letter.
Yeah?
We do a letter saying that it's a heat pump.
Oh, there's no chimney.
No
You use
chimney.
So you don't need a chimney, sir.
You're right, yeah, Howard's right.
Yeah.
So, so it's all electric.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You just,
Yes.
But now she would need, is that lower bucks? Like, she would need that's
that's,
thing?
she would need the easement thing, that's separate from the,
Did you already have that?
from the
I
municipality.
didn't have that, I just put it in once we were under contract.
Yeah,
Problem is, if you do it, if you wait till you're under contract,
Right.
then you have to remove the shed. The buyer says, well, that shed was worth something to me. I don't,
Yeah,
you know,
That's what happened
I
to
want
my house
out
when
of
I bought
contract.
it.
Right.
So that's why you take care of it immediately when you list it.
Yeah.
Because then, if the seller's gonna take care of it, they can do it at their leisure and just disclose to the buyer that this is what's gonna happen.
And especially if it's free, it's not like you're asking for an inspection.
Right.
It's not like you're asking,
Yeah.
it's not like you're putting out monies for an inspection.
And
So-
so also with the propane, some of them are ventless or direct vent, so I would call the plumber out first to check, because then they'll be able to tell you if it's ventless. It may not even be used in the chimney.
oh,
So
yeah.
plumber has to check the propane lines going from the tank to the fireplace.
But he hasn't used or he hasn't used the fireplace in years, so he doesn't even have propane set up to it. Like, there's no propane tank there.
Yeah, just the wiring was there.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Sticking out of the house.
two, if there's a perception to a consumer that that's a functioning, did you market it as non-functioning?
No,
So if it's a functioning, then you're gonna have to get a certification for it.
okay.
Yeah. Have to provide
That's
that.
what I
Well,
It
there's a new
sounds
person
like,
that
I
come
think
in.
you've done it before, where you say it's a non-functioning fireplace, you can close it off, instead
Right.
of having to go through the whole certification of the
Yeah.
liner,
Mhm.
which goes to them.
Neat.
Leave it after a certain point, so, and they just put like a piece of metal up inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call
And
out
that's
the
a lot
plumber
less
first, because
expensive,
they may not even use it, they may not even be vent proof.
Okay.
That's another thing, ventless and vented.
Direct vent.
Yeah. Two, always ask questions, you know, because two, sometimes we'll run across like a unique situation in property, not a cookie cutter house. So then you're gonna wanna ask, hey, I just wanna do it right, Mayor, I'm gonna get the plumber out, is that the right thing to do? And yeah, it is, so. Other questions?
By the way, Lower Southampton does an inspection, but they're pretty easy, unless something's really obvious, or you don't have the proper number of smoke detectors, they're pretty easy.
Yeah, yeah, I think the most difficult one is Falls Township in the area, you know, so they're the most difficult, so, but, yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah, another thing is to be careful, when you think that a township's gonna call something out, they might not. So if, you know, your buyer's concerned about the heater, don't ever say to them, well, it's gonna get certified, it's gonna be fine, that might not be okay. And they might come out and certify and say it's fine, but then there still is an issue. So just be careful, like if you have sidewalks, an inspector could come out and say, oh, this is, you know, a huge tripping hazard, Falls Township comes out and clears it. Now you've said to your buyer, oh, well, they're gonna come out and check it, so they'll
So it'll be
probably have to
repaired.
repair.
Yes, it'll be
So,
repaired.
like,
Right.
cause you
And
don't
don't rely on
know.
the townships, because they're not responsible for anything.
Yeah, so usually on my reply to inspection, I would say seller to repair, if not required by Falls Township. Seller to install, seller to clean. if
you
not
were aware-
required
If you were
by.
aware of something that the buyer brought up to you.
If something was a concern at the home inspection of the buyer, there's gonna be, some
Right, like something like that,
crossovers.
like something like the curbing.
Some crossovers, GFIs and whatnot, but you wanna double do it at the time that you can. Because the inspectors that come out could be distracted, could be having a bad day, could be whatever. So you don't wanna assume that they'll catch it, all the things that are a concern of your buyers.
Your buyer.
So make sure you make it clear on the reply. And I usually put, these are more than likely UNO, like repairs, but these would, we want these repaired, so that we have it in writing, so, and not assume.
And then you would have to get a seller to sign off on that,
On the
that
reply.
reply to
Yeah.
inspection.
Yep,
And
yep,
yes,
Well,
they'll take
they
care
do
of
a
it.
change of terms addendum.
yeah.
The reply to inspections doesn't get signed by a seller, it only gets signed by a buyer. And then once you agree on the terms, then you just put it in the change of terms addendum.
So when you would write it in there and say it was talking about sidewalk that she might have shown.
So I would do it on a buyer's
So you-
reply to
You
inspection,
would say sidewalk may,
right,
one sidewalk be repaired if it's not coming under UNO.
correct, correct. And then once the seller agreed,
Says yes.
it would go on a change of terms.
Okay, then you would say, okay, I'll issue it.
But if it's
Signed.
an FHA deal, they're gonna look at that, the appraiser's gonna come out and.
I never assume that anymore, Deb. I
Really?
honestly don't.
I've had one like that big come back, where they had to like,
They could walk across the grass and not even see it.
Well, this time of the year too, they
You
could
know,
have snow.
they could,
They could have snow.
I
on the
don't-
yeah,
sidewalk.
there's snow in it, yeah.
They could have snow and snow, because they don't know that
I
that's
don't wanna
coming
get
in,
caught with my
a
foot in my
deep.
mouth saying,
And say they're
you
gonna.
said it would get, and, yeah.
Same thing with the township, you can't assume.
It could be the
I've had
used company.
VA that had
Yeah.
to repaint all the shed, you know what I mean, and then a VA that there was paint chipping off windows, they didn't even say anything, so I
Yeah.
couldn't say to my buyer, oh,
It's
that.
so
I can take care
subjective.
of.
Right, right.
Howard, the house on Gable Hill that I was just talking about, it was all converted to electric, it's a heat pump. I called Jason last night and asked him if the fireplace worked, because they've enclosed it all except for the part that goes into the living area. He said he did not know. Now, that doesn't have to be used, correct, because there's no heat, there's only a heat pump. But it's still a fireplace. It's still a fireplace, but it would only be used if they're gonna use it for an actual fire, right? Am I right?
Yeah, so that,
But it
that
still
chimney's,
needs an inspection?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's still a fire. Okay, what if, okay. What's-
Or you could advertise it as non-functioning and seal it off.
She has a
Right,
buyer.
that's what I have the buyer.
She has the buyer already.
And Justin didn't know if it was a working fireplace, so that's whatever. Capping opposed to a liner.
Liner's about $900 in a one-story, and about $1,200 in a two-story Levittown, and capping off is $150.
Okay. So really, if you wanna get the use and occupancy, sometimes it's better to pay the $150, have it capped off, and later, if you wanna make it a functioning fireplace, then invest into it.
Just all depends on the parties. It all
Right.
depends on the parties. Somebody might be buying it for that fireplace.
But
So-
if she had a buyer that didn't really want the fireplace and the seller said, I'll cap it so it's not usable, then it would only cost the seller
Well, they'll have to